everybody. This is Alan with Meet the Thriller Author. And on the podcast today, I'm excited to be joined by Nicole Trope. She's a USA Today and Amazon bestselling author whose latest novel, My Daughter's Secret, is an emotional and suspenseful story about a mother uncovering shocking truths after the sudden death of her daughter. Nicole lives in Sydney, Australia. She's written numerous best-selling thrillers that have captivated readers all around the world. So very excited to talk to you today. Welcome to the podcast, Nicole.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And we'll start from the beginning. You studied law. You've had different jobs. You were teaching. Eventually, find yourself into writing. So I'm kind of curious about that. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you ended up writing thrillers?
Yeah, well, studied law. I started law, and I was not good at that, which is funny because my daughter's actually a lawyer, but I think it takes a certain kind of person. But once I dropped out of law, I studied English literature. I did a master's degree in English literature, and the next best step was to become a teacher. So I became a high school English and drama teacher. But I think the plan was always, interestingly enough, to write. And I didn't actually realize that I'd had that plan. And I was always writing, obviously, poems and short stories. But a friend of mine went away and he came back after a few years overseas. And this was before you could communicate all the time. And he phoned me, he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm doing this and I'm doing this and I'm going to write." And he said, "Oh, yeah, that's exactly what you've always said, that was what you were going to do." So the plan was always there. I taught high school for about 4 years until I fell pregnant with my first child. And then it was time for me to stay home. And that's when I started really seriously writing. So, yeah, and here we are. It sounds quick and simple, but it wasn't. It took a long, long, long time to get published.
Yeah, even when those people have a overnight success, it's really never overnight, is it?
It's never over. There's no such thing. Not for writers, I don't think.
Yeah, exactly. So that first book you wrote, was that The Boy Under the Table? Is that your first
Hmm.
novel?
That
So,
was that was
uh
Yeah. That was the first one. It wasn't the first. It was the first one that got published. There's plenty of them sitting in the bottom of a drawer that will never see the light of day. But yes,
yeah, so we have all of those. I think all writers have those somewhere.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm kind of curious too because I remember I actually read My Daughter's Secret a couple years ago. So it was published with Bokature, and now it's coming out as a trade paperback through Grand
yeah,
Central. So can you tell us a little
yeah.
bit about that? And what does it feel like now? Because your story's going to reach, a whole new format, bigger distribution channel. How does that all feel?
It's quite amazing, and I think when Hachette acquired Bookouture, I think that everything changed because they were a digital publisher, and now, of course, the reach is worldwide and everywhere. So I think that's made a huge difference to the Bookouture writers. So it's wonderful to have Grand Central support, and I have to admit that it was always a dream of mine to be published by Grand Central. So to have this going into stores, and this is not the first one. There's been a few others. It's actually wonderful just to see it, and it's wonderful to see the book popping up in book clubs and getting messages from people, especially all over the States. That's the best part of it. It's the reward, shall we say,
Yeah,
for
well,
all the work.
yeah, I can imagine. That sounds really, really amazing. So let's talk a little bit about My Daughter's Secret here. I've always been curious about this. So what sparked the idea for it? Can you tell us about it and a little about the story for the listeners?
The story is about the death of a child, and she's older. Away at university, and it begins with the scene that begins it is two young girls coming home from a Halloween party, and they walk past a house that has no other decorations except a dummy hanging from a beam. And they're a little bit drunk and they're laughing and they know this house and they think, "Oh, it's so weird. Why is there only one decoration?" And then they go up onto the balcony and see it's not a decoration. And that was the scene that actually began the book in my mind. I had a very clear idea of these two young girls, one with cat ears, walking down and laughing and giggling, and that they're so innocent in their just enjoyment. And then this terrible thing, they see this terrible thing. Um, And the minute that that scene appeared, I knew who the mother was. And I knew that as a mother, you can, if your child makes this terrible choice, the first thing you do is blame yourself. And then you want to know how it happened, why it happened. And that is what the book is, Claire's journey, the mother, to find out how exactly her daughter has made this choice, why she's made this choice. And what she uncovers is quite obviously, this is a psychological thriller, is horrifying and shocking. And that's basically what the story's about.
Hmm. So when Claire discovers the big part of this plot is the letters that she discovers, did that come to you as you were writing it, or was that part of from the beginning as well?
Um, it I don't know if it actually was part of the beginning,
Hmm.
but there's a song that begins "Dear Darling." It's a song, and so that for some reason that lyric kept repeating in my head, and that's where the letters started. And I thought, yeah, so it was kind of there, and I didn't understand how to connect the two. But then I wrote the first letter, and I thought, oh, okay, that's where that comes from.
So I was kind of curious to know, of course, without giving any spoilers. So what could readers expect from your books if they're not familiar with your writing?
Well, I think what they can expect is I write about families in crisis. So I take a family on pretty much the worst day of their life and explore how that happened, why that happened, and how they go on from there. So what I feel like is that we all have dreadful moments. We all have bad days, bad years, and I feel like it's almost my way of dealing with how uncontrollable the world is. So I take a story and I pick it apart to figure out what's going on. You know, you see those headlines in newspapers, awful headlines, and you never know why something has happened. And that's what I do. I pick apart the why, so that I can understand it, so that my readers can understand it. And what it does, it'll take you, it hopefully, which a lot of readers tell me, it takes you out of your own life. It gives you a look into somebody else's life. It's There's a lot of drama, a lot of suspense, and a, a twist or two.
Yeah, it's so important for these domestic psychological thrillers. They've been so popular the last few years. I'm kind of wondering, because you've been writing them for a while, but it seems like the last 3 or 4 years, I just kind of really have taken off. Why do you think us readers love that genre, those type of books so much?
Oh, I think it's always interesting to read about somebody having a worse time than you are. And it's just that's human nature. And it allows us to feel grateful for our own lives, which I think we all need to do more often, me included. And so when you read about another family going through a terrible time, it allows you to think, okay, it happens to everybody. I'm doing okay. And yeah, it gives you a moment out of your own life. I mean, I think that psychological thrillers by their nature are incredibly fast to read and very immersive. And so that's why I think readers really like them. And the rise of digital publishing has meant that a lot more of them are very accessible to readers.
And were you a fan of the genre before you started writing your own thrillers? Is that why you decided to write in those type of books?
Interestingly enough, not I read across a wide uh, band. So I'll read pretty much everything. I don't know that I ever thought I'd write psychological thrillers. I knew I'd write about family in crisis, but the twists always, sometimes they'll surprise me. With My Daughter's Secret, I have to say that the ending, I had another ending in mind until I wrote that ending. And then I thought, oh, and I was just like, and I was a little bit worried because I thought, can I actually write this? Can I write something like this? But it just was the ending that needed to be there. So I'll read everything from detective fiction to romance to everything. Um, I think what I start with is is characters, and the characters are the people who tell the stories. So I'm not quite sure how I ended up writing these novels, but they really do speak to me.
And what's your writing process like then? Do you, it sounds like, do you outline these or do you kind of like, are you a discovery writer?
I'm definitely a discovery writer. When I talk to my editor, she always says, "Well, we've got the next two books coming up. What are your ideas?" And I send her an idea and a vague synopsis, and she goes, "What about this? What about this?" And it usually happens that I will, at some point after the novel is written, go back to the synopsis and think, "Well, that had nothing to do with what I've just written. I don't even understand where that came from." So I definitely am a discovery writer, and I think the minute I start planning, I lose all, it just disappears. All passion for it disappears. So I just let it happen.
And so I'm kind of curious too, because there is like a expectations too from for the reader, and you do it so well. Is that something that you're thinking about as you're writing it, like you're trying to build up the tension, things like that? Is that do you think about that, or does that come later, or like, when you're done with the first draft? Just kind of curious about that process.
I don't think I imagine the twists before they appear. And I have noticed that there will be themes running through the novel that I won't actually pick up on myself until I read it after the first draft. And I'll go, okay, so that's a reoccurring theme, and you've done it through all these characters. But in terms of the twists, sometimes I know that chapter endings should have a certain kind of an ending, so I'll try for that. But really, the first draft is always just about, as everybody says, telling myself the story, and the twists appear on their own.
I'm kind of curious too, because you're in Australia, and for my own books, I was kind of surprised. Like I've had fans from Australia reach out to me and emailing me, and it seems that they really do like this genre too. So, what's the market there for thrillers? And now that you're so international, do you see what similarities do we have? Like a reader fan from the United States compared to Australia, for example.
I think Australians, so this might be a bit controversial.
Oh.
I think Australians have a tendency to, I've got a fan base here, but they have a tendency to like overseas writers in terms of genres like thriller and detective fiction before they'll like Australian writers. So you almost have to, it feels like you almost have to establish yourself overseas before the Australians go, oh, okay. So I had a small fan base from my previous publisher, but definitely having an overseas publisher and having overseas success has made a big difference. And there's a lot of I think Australians, the there's a rawness that they appreciate to Australian writing as well that I didn't know Americans would appreciate, but they really, really do. I was quite surprised that Americans are so interested in my work. And they are my biggest market. So I think they all like character development to a certain extent. There's possibly Australians will enjoy long form chapters more than Americans will, just because I have no idea why, and that's probably a generational thing at this point. But yeah, they all seem to enjoy the family character driven novel.
Yeah, I think I've noticed that the change in the several years too. And I think maybe now with social media and the scrolling on TikTok, people like things shorter. It keeps getting shorter and shorter, it seems like. Uh,
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think that's true of all of us. I've noticed my own concentration span. I need to be invested almost immediately, or I'm not invested.
yeah. Even when you're looking at a book you're thinking about reading, and it's like, oh, really? Over 400 pages? Whereas before it was like no big deal. Yeah.
We've
So
definitely changed.
yes, yes, we have, and all over the world. I'm kind of curious to know with regard to your writing process. So like, do you always like, do you write every day? Do you try to set like I'm going to write at the same time in the same place? I'm just kind of curious about your routine, your writing routine when you're writing your books.
So I have an office space where I write, and a dog. who writes with me.
Yeah,
Doesn't contribute much.
mine's right over this.
Mine's lying over there. He's very quiet, which is good. He's a standard poodle. So I would say that I try to meet when I'm drafting. I try to meet like a 2 to 3,000 word count every day. I've got one like I work. There's a couple of days where I have nothing else on, and therefore can write all day long. But what I find is that my ambition is that when I sit down at the computer, the chapter's already outlined in my head. So what I'm doing is every task, all my domestic tasks, everything else I'm doing, I'm working in my head so that when I sit down, I don't sit down and just go, now what? Because I find that's upsetting to me, and then I get frustrated.
And what program do you use to write your books? Do you use like Word or Scrivener or
Oh,
something?
just Word.
Just
Just
Word?
Word, yeah. No, I know people use Scrivener, but I looked into that once. It looked very complicated.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I've interviewed over 200 thriller authors, and I think like 90% is Word. So that's
Oh,
the
really?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, like
Yeah.
yeah. It's just amazing. And now there's even more stuff out there now. I'm like,
No, I know. Now you can get AI to write a whole book for you.
yes. Well, hopefully we don't have to worry about that too much because I don't think it's as what is it? The hit a button and it'll automatically do it for us. I hope it doesn't get to that.
I know. I think it's a big worry for authors. I know that there's a lot of major apps where all our work is uploaded. That I
Yeah.
mean, then there's just nothing we can do about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's some good tools for like the research and stuff like that. But yeah, but that ship has sailed, I think. The whole AI, it's going to interesting to see what happens in the next few years.
Yeah, it really is. It's going to be a very different world.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah, that's for sure. So I was also kind of curious now. So you said you read all types of books. Do you still find time to read now? Now that you're busy writing these books, do you still find time to read for
Oh
pleasure?
yeah. Reading is my greatest pleasure. So and it will never not be. So I mean every night. I read every night. Um I'm reading a Kristin Hannah book at the moment, and I my favorite author is Terry Pratchett, would you believe? Um and Fay Weldon, and I think I've gone through stages. When I was in my teens, I read endless fantasy, and I haven't quite ever gotten back to fantasy, but I do. I love books. I love reading. I love the worlds that are created by other authors. And because I when I write, I images of a scene come to me. So when I read, that's how I read. I'm the movies in my head.
Hmm. As I noticed when I was looking at your Amazon page before the interview, so you have another book that's coming up as a pre-order. You have My Daughter's Secret that's coming out. So can you tell us about that? About what are you working on right now? What's coming up next for you?
So the book that's coming out on the 17th of October is called What Have You Done? And it's a story about funny and Juliet as opposed to Julia, and it feels like it's the same name, but it's many books later. And she has had a stay in a psychiatric hospital, and she comes home. And in the psychiatric hospital, she accessed some dreadful, awful memories. And as the reader, you have to try and work out what is true and what is not. So that's quite an intense and very dark book, as is My Daughter's Secret. I think some of my novels are a lot darker than others, and the themes are quite dark. So yeah, that's coming out. I just had a novel called The Therapist that came out a couple of months ago, about a therapist who takes on a new client who is not quite as she seems. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and which is nice. It's always nice because it feels like I work and work and work, and there's only a few publications a year, but it's nice to have stuff coming out, especially now with My Daughter's Secret going into stores. And I really look forward to seeing readers' response to that. Even though it's been out for a while, it's nice to revisit this novel because it was the first novel I published with Bookerture, and therefore it's lovely to see a bigger readership respond to it.
Oh, it's like a full circle kind of. I didn't realize that was your first Bookshare book. Yeah.
Yes, it was. It was.
So I was kind of curious on just thought about this now. How does that work? Though? Did you have to go back at all and like reread it or rewrite or
We do an edit. We do an edit specifically for the American market.
Okay.
So just the changing of some words,
Hmm.
which is never really a big deal. But I mean, Bookshare do a lot of edits before any novel comes out. So it's usually pretty ready to go. And Grand Central, they make the decision, but they read a book and make the decision that they like the work. And so it's just that American market edit, which is great. I mean, that's easy enough to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a Bookshare puts out some real good books, have very good authors on there on the roster. So yeah.
They do, yeah, they do. They work very hard and they're very discerning. And I don't think I imagined because I came from a previous publisher and I never had this level of editing and interest and concentration from an editor. So yeah, it's great.
So what are you working now? You're working on a book now that's going to come out next year. Is that how the process works?
That's exactly how the process works. I'm working on a book that I'm sure it's called A Perfectly Nice Family. And it's about a woman who has, I think in America you call them an in-law suite,
Hmm.
or in Australia we call them a granny flat. She has that on her property and she wants to make some extra money. So why not rent it out to a perfectly nice family?
Say no
Or
more.
not?
Already intrigued on that one, so I'm looking forward. Keep my eye on that one.
Yeah.
So Nicole, before I let you go, I always because I do have aspiring writers that listen to this podcast, and so I always ask my guests. I feel like a broken record sometimes, but people love to hear about this. Any advice for someone who wants to write thrillers that is aspiring to write a thriller?
So I would say, first of all, don't worry about your first draft. It's gonna suck. I mean, I know there are people who edit as they go along, and I do that sometimes. I just can't stand spelling mistakes because that red line really bothers me. But otherwise, I just keep going. And the best advice I can give any writer is once you have a workable first draft, like you've got it into shape and you think this is good, is take time off. Stop thinking about it, take a week off, because when you come back, everything looks and feels different. And that's the best thing that I ever do for my work is to take that time off. Because I find if you get to the end and go, right, I'm going to start editing again right now, you miss things, you don't, you, and you miss the sense of the book, you miss everything because it's too in your head already. So take time off before you begin your second draft, your second edit.
Yep, that's good advice. And where can the listeners find you? Are you on social media? Where are you at?
I am on social media. I'm on X, although there's not a lot of engagement with writers there these days. But I'm on Facebook and Instagram. And Facebook is a lot of readers send me messages over Facebook and Instagram. So I try to respond to all of those messages. I think that's very important that readers know that because if somebody is kind enough to say I loved your book, you should be kind enough to say thank you.
Yep, that's awesome. Okay, so the My Daughter's Secret comes out September 30th. So by the time this podcast is published, it'll be there. So people go check
It
it
will
out.
be there. I'm sure it's probably hitting stores right now.
Yes, yes, exactly. It's magic. All right, Nicole, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Really enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really nice to be here.